I want to turn now, literally, to the Senate. Rhode Island Democratic Senator Jack Reed, who is the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, I'm so glad to have you with us. What do you know?
Thank you very much.
About the report, the Inspector General's report, and what is your assessment of the conduct of the Defense Secretary?
Well, the report, which I've read, is still classified, but there are public statements already that have indicated that there were serious misjudgments by the Secretary. Poor decisions about taking sensitive information and putting it on an unclassified system. And I think the most compelling thing I've heard is a conclusion that he jeopardized the lives of pilots that were going into action by releasing critical data. All of this adds up to very, very poor judgment. As I said at his confirmation hearing, I did not believe he had the competence, the temperament, and the experience to be Secretary of Defense, and he's proven that.
The White House said the following through Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary. This review affirms what the administration has said from the beginning. No classified information was leaked. President Trump stands by Secretary Hegseth. Your reaction to that, Senator Reed?
Well, that might be a technicality. Certainly very highly sensitive information was released on a non-classified source. None of that information should have been discussed on that source. And the Inspector General concluded that the release of the information jeopardized the lives, potentially, of American airmen and other servicemen. So that's a very weak defense for what took place.
And, Senator, when the White House says, as the Pentagon also says, well, nobody got hurt, nobody was really truly jeopardized or put in any jeopardies, so what are you worrying about?
Well, I would worry about that becoming a common practice in the Department of Defense. One of the ironies here is if someone else besides Secretary Hegseth did it, they would likely be charged under the UCMJ or other federal law for releasing classified information or at least utilizing a unclassified system to talk about sensitive information. So we're worried about the impact on the military. If this gets to be accepted, it'll be extraordinarily dangerous to the conduct of military operations.
Tomorrow, Senator, Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley will come before you and others on the Armed Services Committee in regard to what happened on September 2nd off the coast of Venezuela. 2 strikes, maybe more, and suggestions that that second strike might have been a war crime or something approximating one. What do you want to hear from Admiral Bradley? And have you reached, I know you choose your words carefully, Senator, any conclusions about whether or not what has been reported might constitute a war crime?
Well, first of all, we have to give Admiral Bradley an opportunity to explain the situation. And I would also commend Senator Wicker because he joined me in calling for a thorough investigation. We're going to essentially ask in detail what happened, who gave what orders, what were the orders? Were they to disrupt the traffic? Were they to simply sink the ships or other aspects of this? What has been suggested in the press, if that is true, that there were deliberate attacks upon individuals in the water, that would certainly constitute a war crime.
I want to read for you something, Senator, that Tom Nichols wrote in The Atlantic this week, because the Pentagon said Admiral Bradley had broad discretion and that Secretary Hegseth did not give him an explicit order for a second or maybe more strikes against those clinging to wreckage from the first strike. He writes as follows: "This seems implausible. Bradley is an experienced officer who, by virtue of his rank and position, would be intimately familiar with the laws of armed conflict. He would have to know that such an order is likely a war crime, and any senior officer would want civilian leadership to sign off." Do you believe that to be accurate?
I think that's an accurate assessment, yes. I also understand and recall that Secretary Hegseth was very prominently declaring that he had essentially been involved with the details of all these initial strikes, that it was his work, his involvement that was significant. And now he seems to be walking away and saying, well, no, this was I was too busy to watch the rest of the video. I walked away and Admiral Bradley did something. It's not a particularly compelling response when you contrast it with his boasting, really, of how intimately he was involved in the initial operations, the first several strikes.
Senator Reed, I want to play for you sound from President Trump just this afternoon about what he, in response to a question about potential land strikes in Venezuela, said. Please listen.
Very soon we're going to start doing it on land, too, because we know every route, we know every house, we know where they manufacture this crap, we know where they put it all together, and I think you're going to see it very soon on land.
What are the implications of that, and do you believe this is a full-bore intimidation campaign by the president to drive Nicolas Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, into exile without actually launching kinetic strikes in the country?
Well, I think it's a very complicated, confused strategy. First of all, there's no rationale for keeping a aircraft carrier task force in the Caribbean. They could be used more effectively elsewhere. It's a head game he's playing with Maduro. Just a few days ago, it was reported he spoke to him. Now today, he's claiming he's going to have land attacks. I don't think there's a strategy behind this. I think a lot of it is just off the cuff, ad hoc. I want to get rid of him today, tomorrow, maybe I can make a deal. And this is characterizing a great deal of the national security strategy, and that's probably not the right term, but the national security programs of this administration. One day he's going to negotiate, the next day he's going to attack. I don't think there's any legal basis for the United States to conduct military operations against the government of Venezuela in Venezuela. There's a separate issue here about the drug dealers. That, too, is highly questionable. But an attack on a sovereign nation without any more serious justification would require, I think, the act of Congress.
Rhode Island Democratic Senator Jack Reed, ranking Democrat on the Armed Services Committee. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.